What is going on, guys? Today we are going to be looking at the best goalkeepers in FC24, and now we've got a few extra kind of nice ones. I'd say they're very bottom tier at the moment, but it is a good kind of inkling to where this game's going. It seems that last year we got a lot of goalkeepers later on in the year, mainly during Team of the Season and slightly prior to it, but this year they've started off. I know the Player of the Month goalkeeper from Ligue 1 is just a Player of the Month. There's no ways that they could have stopped that or started that. It is just what it is. But they have given us one goalkeeper every single promo so far, so it's a good start, bar from, I think, Road to the Knockout. But after that, Trailblazer we did, and also in Centurions. So where does everybody rank? Because naturally, you want to know the best goalkeeper. Who is the one between the sticks that you want as your number one goalkeeper? If we start off then with the kind of lower tier, we are looking at somebody like, and I've only put him in here somewhere, Pope. Now, Pope is a very good goalkeeper, don't get me wrong. He is one of the goalkeepers that is a perfect starter. Doesn't cost literally anything. I'm pretty sure he's 84 rated and he's coming in at 4.9k. He's 6'6", so absolutely ginormous, but that isn't the reason that I've put him in. He is a great starter, but we have had some inkling, and I can imagine we will get this at some point, in an evolutions for a goalkeeper. Now, I'm praying that they don't give us what we've seen in the past, 10 different evolutions, that it has to be like a max 83 or 82. I'm hoping that they do manage to give us a goalkeeper, for instance, like a Ramsdale, Lloris, Pope, some of the goalkeepers that maybe are on the lower side of ratings, and get a double upgrade, even a triple upgrade. It could really make a massive difference with goalkeepers, and I think that is why they're holding out, because they know full well, rather than paying 50k for an Alisson, 70k for a Courtois, you're going to pay 5k for a Pope and make him 86, and he's 6'6". That is already a very good goalkeeper added to the evolutions, but it's something that I wanted to mention with him. I do think he's probably more B tier. I don't think he's necessarily that bad of a keeper, especially if I'm looking at his rating. Now, in terms of the women goalkeepers, some of them struggle, and naturally it will always come down to one thing and one thing only, and it's the same as Campos, is height. Some people absolutely adore Campos. I personally don't, and I think mainly what I'm looking at on terms of stats, they're very good. 93 on the diving, if I put him up here. 93 on the diving, 83 handling, 90 reflex, 80 positioning, but stat-wise, isn't terrible. It's most definitely not a bad statted card, but standing at, 5'7", I think he is. For me, that is the main factor whenever I've seen a goalkeeper that is on the smaller side. Just doesn't work. He's coming in, 5'7". We've got the same for Earps, and we've also got the same for, I think, Sandra. 5'8" and 5'7", just not gonna work. Now, Endler is another kind of different woman goalkeeper, the highest rated woman goalkeeper we can have, and she is 6 foot. And I'd see that is why I would put her as a little bit higher. Again, I don't see it very often, but whenever you do see the kind of Diana partnership, maybe you need some links. They don't necessarily have any French players or say any PSG players that can link her. She's always one that I've seen a handful of times, and obviously we go back to the normal goalkeepers in Courtois, Donnarumma, the standard, but I have seen her a couple of times, and I can imagine, again, because the height isn't necessarily the lowest, that is, for me, that is my only comparison between any of these players. That naturally just is what it is. Now, we do have a few of the lower goalkeepers in here as well, and I think they start roughly, I'd say, about 86. In terms of gold goalkeepers, there are some standards. There are some that just are not worth mentioning. When we look at the 85s, they're good and they're okay, but I really wouldn't put them worth anything on this list, because we've already got, I think, 25 goalkeepers in this list. I would say there's probably about 5 that I'd say, yes, that is a must if you could buy them, and if not, then the gold goalkeepers will definitely do. So, to start with, Giroud, a big goalkeeper, random change, I must admit, they did really go well with that, and I think most definitely we asked for Walker for so long, we finally got him, he was awful. Now, Giroud, on the other hand, isn't actually that bad. I must admit, I was expecting him to be horrendous. And I'm not saying he's going to be the number one goalkeeper spot by any shout, but in terms of an outfield player going in net, in and in for mid-year, I wouldn't say he's awful. I definitely have seen him a lot more than actually I would think so. I really thought he would just be kind of in there one week, out the next. I've still seen him today, and it's been about 2-3 weeks since he got that in form, so it is crazy to see him in there, and I would go in that A slot for him. We also see someone like Szczesny, again another kind of lower rated goalkeeper, as well as Kobel. Both of these two for me are more team based rather than anything. If you are looking for links for Dortmund or Juventus, they are going to be two perfect goalkeepers that will get into the team and will give you something. Kobel was one that I used from the very start, managed to get him off, and an 87 rated goalkeeper, you can't turn that down. Once he kind of overtook the Ramsdales and the Popes, most definitely a Kobel is a nice jump up. Then we have someone like a Neuer. I think, again, for me, he's still a very good goalkeeper, but I wouldn't say he's actually in that S anymore. I would put him probably in the sort of top of A. So if I was kind of going in this list, I would probably go something like that. Trying to keep them in that sort of order as well. I know I saw a comment last time doing a ranking is trying to keep them in the order of where I'd go. So, for instance, the top of A, I would go with Neuer. FC24 is here and Sky Coach has all your needs covered. From squad battles, champs, qualifications, and even now draft boosting, there is a long list of services they do give, as well as coaching, and also the big one everybody wants in FC24 coins. This service is fast and reliable, and you will get your coins, your boosting services, or obviously coaching in a matter of hours. If you do want to get any of these, make sure you head over to skycoach.gg, go onto the website, and when you go to checkout, make sure that you are using the code JT11 at checkout for your 5% off your orders. And if you'd prefer to do this on mobile, check out the screen right now with the QR code for their mobile app. And then we have the two kind of goalkeepers that are of the lower rated but are a special variety. That is going to be Lecker and also Bulka. Obviously, two of them are, well, one of them is an SBC. I don't know about Lecker, to be honest. Let's have a look and see. He is an SBC. I thought he was. So he's currently coming in at 18,000, and Bulka is coming in at a whopping, I can imagine just the same, 19,000. So both of them are cheap SBCs. If you wanted to get them done with untradables, then you most definitely can do that and get either an SBC fodder or you get an 85 goalkeeper that you can keep in there. I know a lot of people do like to have their special goalkeeper as well, just purely on the basis of kind of getting rid of the gold and having a full 11 special team. It's not personally my kind of prerogative to try and do. I will always go for the best goalkeeper that I possibly can, and normally I will try and keep the whole team untradeable. It's just something that I do. In terms of where I'd put both of them, I would personally say I'd put Bulka probably the end of A, and I'd go with Lecker just behind Pope if I'm being brutal with him. We did then get Trapp as well. I think he was an SBC, and I want to say he was relatively cheap as well. For an 87, he was 27,000 coins, getting a double rating upgrade from the other two SBCs, which I can imagine is what we're going to get a lot of from these goalkeepers. So naturally, you're going to have to put him in that higher rating. I do like Trapp. Last year, he managed to get a few informs, and I'm glad that they did manage to do it. But the one thing that they didn't do is give him a playstyle plus. Not one goalkeeper on this list has a playstyle plus for a goalkeeper yet. I am waiting for that to come out. Whether we see that in the evolutions, it could be quite nice. And if I was going with Trapp, I would go probably in the second spot. I think Neuer still is the better Bundesliga goalkeeper, but Trapp most definitely is not worth to be slept on, especially for the cost that you could have done with untradables. Now then, this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting as we're getting into the S and S plus tiers. I must admit, if I'm kind of being brutal with him, I think for me, Oblak probably sits in the A. I'd probably say top of A as well, but I wouldn't necessarily go into the S with him. He has definitely had a big kind of downgrade from him, and I must admit, it's kind of really added that negative side of it. And then I'd say the rest of the goalkeepers, I'd actually put in the top of tier. So starting off, Dudek is one that I must admit I swallowed my words for. I think he's absolutely fantastic in this game. Last year I wasn't too much of a fan. I don't know if it is purely just a basis of having a few more games with him, or naturally just giving him a second chance has worked really well. Plus, I have seen him quite a few times. Naturally, we did manage to get him, or at least a lot of people have managed to get him out of the Hero SBC. So you could imagine there is a lot more going round, especially if you haven't packed any icon goalkeeper, which is fair enough. But if you haven't got your Courtois, your Edison, your Alisson, who I consider the better gold goalkeepers, then Dudek is going to be one great shout in that S category. Just putting up there as well, just so we've got it here, I must admit, S plus is the one. Courtois is just naturally vibes. He is incredible, coming in at 68,500 coins. For me, he is the best gold goalkeeper you can get, and I would say that's just naturally from my personal playing with him. I found him in terms of every year being the best. There's only one man in, I think, in like FIFA 19, FIFA 20 that has kind of beaten to that point, and that was going to be Donnarumma. This year, Donnarumma not necessarily at that same rating, so I do think Courtois still retains that top spot, but not being beaten by, too far off, Ederson and also Alisson. For me, them two will always be absolutely incredible. The past few years have been phenomenal for them. So I would personally go with them as the best goalkeepers you can physically get. There is one goalkeeper that is going to be ahead of all of them, but them three are what I would suggest to get straight off the bat. Alisson's 46, Ederson's 25. There is, 3 ratings different. I personally rock Ederson at the moment, untradeable. We have used Courtois on the second account, and he has been phenomenal. But then also, so has Donnarumma. So I would put Donnarumma, I'd put him ahead of Dudek if I'm being brutal with him, but I would say there's very little between them. And same with every rating here. There isn't necessarily a massive gap. It's a lot of the time, it is just a personal preference in terms of what I like. Same with Mignan. I think he is absolutely brilliant, and last year was exactly the same. Burst onto the scenes in terms of rating, and most definitely needed that upgrade just to be that best Serie A goalkeeper. With Szczesny, did manage to get the team of the season, which kind of just meant Mignan got pushed to the side a little bit. When you've not got an upgrade and you've just got your gold, maybe 1 in form, unfortunately, by the end of the game, it isn't enough. And then we have ter Stegen, the final gold of the list. He's currently coming in at 37,500 coins, and I'd happily put him in the top of S. I think for me, he is just under the S+, and I can imagine people will argue between them, whether he's S+ or not, but for me, I think he's kind of very good, but I wouldn't necessarily put him in that top category. The only time I would do that is if you are looking for links with German, or obviously Barca players, or a mixture of both. That for me is going to be the only way that I get him in the team. And then we have the icons. So for me, you have got one that is a complete stick out, and the rest are good, but I wouldn't necessarily say they are absolute number one. So for me, if we look at Schmeichel, Cech and Casillas, they're currently coming in at Casillas at 306, Schmeichel at 297 and Cech at 264. Cech this year's definitely had a better upgrade in comparison to what I've saw in previous years. I really didn't like him last year. I didn't think he was worth any sort of coins, and I can imagine his price did reflect that. Same with Schmeichel. To be fair to him, his kind of prime card was okay. Base and mid just absolutely stinked it out. But this year, with only one upgrade at the minute, until we get any more campaigns with a goalkeeper, this is what we've got. So naturally, they will keep a better price. And in terms of stats, are slightly different to different compared to what we have in previous years. Maybe it's the same as the mid, maybe it's the same as the prime. You never know. Same as Yashin. It's not quite 94, I think he had, but it's still a very, it's the most the most highest rated goalkeeper that you can get at the moment. So naturally, he's going to be of a higher rating and price. So in terms of Casillas, Cech and Schmeichel, for me, I would go with Casillas at number 1 spot of S, 100%. I would personally go Cech just below ter Stegen, and I'd go Schmeichel just in that second spot. That for me is the kind of perfect running. Like I said, you could argue between all of these keepers and all of them would give you the same sort of outcome. I would say Yashin would go just a... Oh, that's a good one. Would I go Yashin? He's 505k, but I must admit, I've been a bit more of a fan of Courtois. It just is the preference, like I said. And Van der Sar is naturally always going to be in that top spot for me. He is absolutely incredible. And again this year, he is dominating. Whether we see a team of the year, we'll have to get into it. But that's going to be my goalkeeper list. Let me know down below if you agree. And who is your goalkeeper at the moment. Take care. Peace.